We are a nonpartisan grassroots movement whose core values are constitutionally limited government, free markets, and fiscal responsibility. And while many of us agree on social issues, we have limited our focus to our 3 core values. Is this too loud? No. All of our decisions are based on those core values. So will you all please stand with me for our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And Darren, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if you're a veteran, we would like to recognize you, so will you please raise your hand? All veterans? Thank you. Thank you for your service. Is that you doing that, or is that me?
I think it's maybe just hold it closer.
Stop it, John.
Maybe hold it closer.
Oh, closer?
There we go.
That sounds so loud.
It is pretty loud.
Okay, how's this? Okay, I need to read this disclaimer. From time to time, we invite guest speakers to address our group on matters of interest or information that could be of concern to our community. However, we wish to point out that comments, questions, statements, and/or opinions that are expressed by any individual do not necessarily represent the viewpoint of the Chico Tea Party Patriots as a group. We support the right of free speech and acknowledge that we will not always agree with each other. However, we ask that everyone observe the basic rules of courtesy. Also, we would like to thank Brewery Calendars and their staff for serving us this evening, so please tip them generously. And now, before I go on, I just want to make a brief announcement to explain a little bit about some of the changes we've made in the Chico Tea Party. We actually have, in the past we'd say, well, we're just a movement, we're a group of people, we're a mob, we're leaderless. Although there were people who did lead it, obviously we came up and we led the meetings. We've now put in place a structure, and we'll be going forward with a structure. We're writing a mission statement, we're coming up with objectives, and of course we have our 3 core values, and they will always be in line with that. And we've put in place officers, the leaders. So if anyone asks you who is the leader of the Chico Tea Party, these are our leaders, and I will introduce them, and I will ask you to stand when I introduce you, and I'll say what your name is. So, my name is Sue Hubbard, and I am the chair of the Chico Tea Party. And Darren Lee, would you please stand, is the vice chair of the Chico Tea Party, and you will see him at many meetings. Now, we'll still rotate running these meetings, the speakers forum. We'll rotate with that. We are having our business meetings, and the officers are the ones that run the business. I will run the business meeting all the time, and our officers will be there. And if you're interested in being active in the Tea Party, please come to our business meetings. See John Salyer about times and places and all that. Okay, so we have our vice chair. Now, Pat Jones is our treasurer. Stephanie Tabor is our secretary. Our activities coordinator, who we like to call our calendar girl, is Mary Kennedy. A researcher and webmaster is Tom Kozik. Our member at large, although he's not really large, and he also runs the Tea Party website. Webmaster is different than that, so he runs the Tea Party website and sends out all the emails and does just about everything else around here. John Salyer. Nancy Henry is going to be our letter writer, one of our letter writers to the editor. Am I missing? Who am I missing?
Our speaker committee too.
We have a committee that will find speakers for. See, this particular Tuesday is the fourth Tuesday of the month is the Tuesday we will have our speakers. We have a committee to find speakers, and that committee is comprised of Darren Lee, Mary Kennedy, Pat Jones, and Betty Schumacher. Betty, stand up. No one saw you. Wait a minute. There you go. Okay. Now, anyone else?
Just for me?
Anyone else on this? Yeah, we clap when you come through the door. Okay. So, you'll hear more about that. Since there aren't many people here tonight, we'll be introducing this again because I want to continue to introduce these people so that everyone knows who the leaders of the Chico Tea Party are. Okay, so with that, I am going to hand this meeting over to our Vice Chair, Darren Lee.
I don't need this, thank you. Hi everybody, I'm Darren Lee. Thank you for having me, and the core guys, thanks for nominating and voting me into Vice Chair. Sue asked if I would tell a little bit about myself this evening, just so kind of everybody knows where I'm at. I moved to Chico in 1972 when I was 5 years old. Stayed here until 1984 and moved to Tracy down in the San Joaquin Valley in 84 and finished out high school, graduated from Tracy High in 87. To which I immediately joined the Marine Corps and left for boot camp 2 weeks after graduation. So it was going from a great life to, oh hell, what did I just do? I stayed in the Marine Corps through 1991. I was extended 2 months past my EAS date for Desert Storm, which I am a proud veteran of. Fought and served with a lot of great guys who I'm in contact with today. Thanks to social media like Facebook and such. It's been great getting to know these guys again. After the Marine Corps, I came back to California for a little bit. Kind of had enough of it. Moved to Texas. Spent a lot of years down in Texas, fighting the good fight down there. Did a lot of stuff with the rodeos and whatnot. Got into the rodeo Christians group down there and did some preaching and whatnots. From there, I decided to take that fight to the East Coast. Went to New England. Lived in Connecticut, literally behind the trenches. The liberals out there are crazy. They are crazy. In your face. I learned a valuable lesson out there. As soon as they go to name calling and insulting, you've won the battle. They're done. They have nothing left to give. So, 4 years ago, tomorrow, I moved back to Chico. Literally passing through Chico, coming through. My brother still lived here, been here his whole life. Decided to stay. Didn't leave Chico that day. I came through. Literally with the clothes on my back, an extra change, and my toiletries, left everything where it was, just taken care of now, but left it all there and have made my life back here in Chico again. I remembered how much I loved this town when I was in junior high school and elementary school, and being able to walk from Kathy Lane out off of Garner all the way to Shasta Elementary as a 7-year-old little boy, without having to worry about it. You can't do that in Chico now. You can't do anything as a child in Chico anymore. Yeah. And I decided to stay. It was where I met Toby Schindelbeck. Sue and I were talking at the Wounded Warriors, which I'm active in them as well. The Wounded Warriors dinner, when I worked for KPAY News at the time. And he introduced me to you guys, and here I am today. And thank you for having me. Sue did ask me to have one more announcement here. To sign up for the volunteer for the 4th of July Tea Party booth, you need to see Mary, is that correct?
Or me. Yeah.
Or it says Mary or Betty. Okay. And I believe, does anybody else have any announcements? Nothing? Okay, well then without any further ado, I got to see this man in Paradise last month. It was phenomenal. There was a lot of people there. Our Undersheriff, Butte County's Undersheriff, Mr. Kory Honea.
Honey.
Honey.
Okay.
Sorry, that was my...
That's okay.
Thank you.
No worries. No, my pleasure. And if I stand here and talk, is this, can you all see me? Is this good? Okay, very good. And thank you. I appreciate the introduction. And certainly, you know, as you heard, my name is Kory Honea. I'm the Undersheriff.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I work for the Butte County Sheriff's Office. It's an honor to be here. I really do appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk with you. As you heard, Sheriff Smith and I were up in Paradise, and we talked to the Paradise Tea Party. That was a well-attended meeting. And the issue there, we were talking about the Second Amendment and guns and gun control issues, those kinds of things. Second Amendment is a issue that's near and dear to my heart. And so certainly I was thankful to be able to go up there and talk about that. But tonight I've been asked to talk to you about what is commonly known in California as AB 109, Assembly Bill 109, or the prisoner realignment bill that was passed in 2011. I've gone around kind of giving this presentation to a lot of groups, and I like to give it to a lot of groups because frankly there is a lot of confusion and misunderstanding about what AB 109 did. And I also think it's important for people to understand what our response here in Butte County has been, and to show you the things that we've done and where we think those things are paying dividends to us, and also where we ultimately need to go and how we need to continue to address this problem. I actually did this presentation for a Butte College class here about a week and a half ago. So I put some bio information in there because they were interested in careers in law enforcement. We'll just kind of skip through that, and then we'll just get into the nuts and bolts of this. If I can, oh, there we go. Okay, so let me tell you first about my inability to operate this remote control correctly. No. Let me tell you a little bit about the Butte County Jail, because you have to understand the Butte County Jail to understand the impact of AB 109. First off, this is a picture of the Butte County Jail, and the Butte County Jail, as it currently sits, has 614 beds. 154 of those beds were built in 1964, and then 416 were built in 1994. This area right here is the older section of the jail, and this is the newer section of the jail. The older section of the jail is a linear style jail. It's the kind of thing that you would expect to see, you know, in Alcatraz with long walks and bars and those kinds of things. The newer jail is built, they're pods, housing units with both cells and dorm style living that are centered around a central control, and so you have a correctional deputy can stand in the central control or the pod and look out and monitor multiple housing units at one time. It's a more efficient way to supervise inmates. The older linear style jail is a very labor intensive way to supervise inmates, and it requires more staff. I'm going to get it, I promise you. So now that you understand basically the capacity of the Butte County Jail, I want to tell you what AB 109 was, or what actually resulted, because there's a lot of misunderstanding. And let me begin by telling you this. This was not a problem that we really wanted visited upon us. Quite frankly, the sheriff and I, back in 2011, when we heard this thing was coming, we recognized that there was this perfect storm, if you will, that was going to result in AB 109 being passed. And we realized that we didn't have much choice in the matter. And although it wasn't something that we wanted to deal with, we knew we had to deal with it. And very early on, we came to the conclusion that we were going to try to solve problems rather than complain about them. We were going to work on trying to come up with solutions that dealt with the impacts of AB 109 in a way that mitigated the impacts on public safety and helped us manage our jail population. So let me tell you what AB 109 was real quick. The perfect storm that brought AB 109 about were two conditions. The first one were a series of lawsuits that were working their ways through the federal court system. They ultimately joined together and became known as the Coleman-Pilata cases. And in those cases, state inmates had sued the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, asserting that because the prisons were so overcrowded, the state couldn't provide adequate medical, mental, or dental health care, and therefore the conditions were violating the 8th Amendment against cruel and unusual punishment. That was the basis of the suit. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ultimately ordered the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to reduce its population down to 137.5% of capacity. It was approaching 200% of capacity. And they ordered this, this reduction. The state appealed that to the United States Supreme Court, and just shortly, a few months before AB 109 was enacted, the United States Supreme Court upheld the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling and ordered the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to proceed with reduction to 137% of capacity. And in that decision, the Supreme Court actually said that they were aware that California was considering a prisoner realignment legislation that ultimately became AB 109, and in essence endorsed that approach. The other problem that was brewing at that time that ultimately led to this was the fiscal crisis that the state of California was suffering from at the time. If you remember, about that time, there was a $27 billion deficit, and the California Department of Correction Rehabilitation portion of the budget was $9 billion. The fact of the matter is, the state came to believe, or came to the conclusion that they couldn't build their way out of this problem. They couldn't build more prisons to put these people, so they ultimately passed AB 109. Now, what did AB 109 do? What AB 109 did was it realigned offender populations. It did not release inmates from state prison. A lot of people think, oh, that they opened the doors and out came the prisoners. That's not what happened. What it did was it changed the location where certain offender populations serve their sentences. There are three offender populations that ultimately impacted the Butte County Jail. The first one was the offender population that became known as the non-non-nons. And they became known as that because they were people who were convicted of what the penal code defines as non-violent, non-serious, and non-sex related felonies. Prior to AB 109, if a person was convicted of one of those non-serious, non-violent, non-sex related felonies, they would serve their time in state prison. After AB 109, a person convicted of a non-violent, non-serious, or non-sex related felony will serve his or her time in the county jail, which we now affectionately call county prison. Okay. The second offender population that was realigned was the parole violators. Prior to AB 109, if a person who was out on state parole, being supervised by state parole agents, violated the terms and conditions of their parole, they would be sent back to state prison to serve that violation. After AB 109, parole violators now serve their violation in county prison, county jail. And the third group that was realigned were those people who, prior to the passage of AB 109, had been sentenced to serve time in state prison for a non-violent, non-serious, non-sex related felony. When they got out of prison and were on parole, instead of being supervised by state parole agents, they're now supervised by county probation officers. And if they violate the terms and conditions of their supervision, they do their time in the Butte County Jail as opposed to the state prison. So these were three new populations that we were going to have to deal with. The other thing that AB 109 sent to the counties, or realigned the counties, was funding. Now, it has been challenging because the amount of funding that the state was using to deal with this offender population is less considerably than the amount of money that they sent to us to deal with the same offender population. The estimate was that it cost about $50,000 to house a person in state prison for 1 year. Okay? But when they realigned the responsibility to us and they sent us funding, it worked out to about $25,000 a year, about half. And they put mandates on us that ultimately required us to share that pot of money with other criminal justice stakeholders. Now, I'm not here to complain about that because, frankly, the one thing that has happened here in Butte County is we began to work very, very closely with our criminal justice stakeholders. And now you have an entity called the Community Corrections Partnership. It is made up of the Chief Probation Officer, the Sheriff, the District Attorney, a Chief of Police elected at large by the other Chiefs of Police, and a member of either the Department of Social Services or Department of Behavioral Health, a member of a community-based organization. I think I've got all of those, or the main players in those. Oh, a representative of the Board of Supervisors in the form of the CAO, and a member of the Superior Court. Those are the people that make up the Community Corrections Partnership. And I got to tell you that we work well in Butte County, and we've actually done much, much better than some of the counties that I hear about who haven't worked as well together. So, my challenge was, I had a 614-bed jail. We were already operating under a court-ordered population cap that was imposed upon us in the 1970s. I was about to get a whole bunch of new offenders into our jail, and we needed to come up with a plan that was going to help us deal with this, but yet mitigate the impacts of public safety. And I did it again. So, here's what the numbers look like. Prior to AB 109, the average daily population in the Butte County Jail was 550 inmates. That means we had 550 inmates in the jail. Now, I told you earlier, on a given day, and I told you earlier that our bed count was 614. And I have to tell you that our maximum, or rather our optimum operation level with regard to the number of inmates we have is about 550. At 550 inmates, we have enough beds open that we can make movements within the facility. As you might imagine, there are people within the jail who don't get along with each other, so we have to be able to move them around. We have to be able to keep them separated. We also have to have enough beds for this. If there is a large number of arrests that come in the street, we have to have a place to ultimately put these people. And so that's where we generally operated. We were doing in 2010, due to that court-ordered population cap, we had about 240 releases due to overcrowding. The vast majority of them were misdemeanors. Okay? And our Sheriff's Work Alternative Program and electronic monitoring program, we were running about 100 offenders. We had about 100 offenders in those programs in 2010. After the passage of AB 109, our average daily population jumped to 590 per day. Okay? And now it's not uncommon for me to see 600 and more inmates in custody on a daily basis. Our overcrowding releases in 2011, remember that was this AB 109 went into effect in October of 2011, so not a full year. With just a partial year, our releases due to overcrowding jumped to 400. And then with a full year of implementation, we jumped to 1,700 releases due to overcrowding. Pretty significant. And I got to tell you, the vast majority of those releases are misdemeanor arrests. We ultimately had to come up with a plan to ensure that we were mitigating impacts on public safety by evaluating people and only releasing the ones, or it's about managing risk to us. And we ultimately have to determine what the risk is to releasing somebody while maintaining our jail's population. Okay. So, as I told you, this isn't something that we were wanting. I'm going to admit to you that my job was easier prior to this. It was. Now, I didn't realize how easy it was then, but now I look back fondly on those days and go, wow, that was nice. I enjoyed that. It's much, much tougher now, and the challenges are every day. We are looking at ways to manage this offender population, and we're looking at ways to do it in a cost-effective way, in a way that promotes public safety. And as I told you, the sheriff and I kind of quickly came to the conclusion that we needed to come up with a plan. We couldn't just sit around and cry about it. We couldn't sit around and complain about it. We had to come up with a plan. And so we did that by developing a three-pronged approach to this. The first approach was to enhance our pretrial release program. And as part of that, we obtained a standing court order from the Superior Court, which allows us to release offenders who have been assessed with a evidence-based risk assessment tool. If they assess out as low risk to public safety, we can release them from the jail before having to send them to an arraignment. The other thing that we were able to do is increase our supervision of people released on OR. Prior to AB 109, once a person was released on OR, there were terms and conditions associated with it, like they might have to test for drugs or be searchable, but there was really nobody monitoring. Now we have the ability to actually supervise these people, and that could range from on low-level offenders, first-time offenders, people with rather insignificant criminal histories, might get a phone call from us and say, okay, listen, you got court tomorrow, make sure you show up there. Is there going to be a problem? We try to help them figure out what to do. To someone who poses maybe a greater risk, might actually have an ankle bracelet on, a GPS ankle bracelet, might be monitored by our deputies, who I'll tell you about. I'll tell you more about in a moment. The second approach was the development of our alternative custody supervision program, and that's the program that I'm going to tell you the most about today, because that's the program that we're doing a lot of things in. And the third approach was we realized that we were going to eventually have to increase our capacity. Now granted, we've developed some good programs, I think, to deal with offenders and reduce recidivism, but the fact is this: there are some people who pose too great a threat to public safety to be out of the community. There are some people who are just too dangerous, and the place for them to be is locked in the jail. Okay? And I need to have a place for them. And so we realized that we'd eventually have to start working on a way to renovate and expand the jail. And right now, we're exploring funding options under Senate Bill 1022. Now, our alternative custody supervision program, which we call ACS, was established to mitigate the impacts of AB 109 while serving the interests of public safety. And I'm going to go through this kind of fast, and I'll show you things, and then I want to leave it open for questions. Okay? So the first thing is, the core of our alternative custody supervision program is our staff. These are the people who are out in the community supervising the inmates who have been put on alternative custody supervision program. So I have 8 correctional deputies and 2 deputy sheriffs, plus some clerical staff who run the program. The program involves offenders who, after they have been sentenced to county prison, having been convicted of one of the non felonies, right? Sounds funny when you say it. After they've been in jail for a period of time, we do what's a risk assessment on them. And this risk assessment is what's called an evidence-based risk assessment. It's a risk assessment that's been studied and shown to be effective. And it, in essence, measures the risk that that person poses to public safety. And if they pose a reasonable risk, or at least as reasonable as we can make it at the time, then they may be eligible for alternative custody supervision program. Now there's some other program requirements. For example, they have to have a house, they have to have a place to live, and some means of supporting themselves. We will not put an offender out into the community if they don't have a place to live. Hello? After they're found to be suitable, the next thing that we do is, see, I thought I had it that time. The next thing that we do is remove them from the brick and mortar jail. We put them on the alternative custody program, and every one of the offenders in the alternative custody program is required to wear a GPS ankle bracelet, so we can monitor them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the deputies that I showed you carry around iPhones, and they can log on to their iPhones, and they can follow or monitor the inmates that are on their caseload wherever they are, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If the inmate cuts one of these off, you can pass it around. If the inmates cut one of these off, it sends us an alert, and we can go out and look for them. We also have the ability with these to set up both inclusionary zones and exclusionary zones. So for example, their house might be the inclusionary zone. As long as they're in their house, everything is fine. If they leave their house and they're not authorized by us to leave their house, it sends us a signal and lets us know so we can go find them. We can also set up exclusion zones. So let's say they burglarized a business. Well, we don't want them to go to that business. So we can set up an exclusion zone around that business, and if they try to go to that business, it sends us a signal and we can go out and get them. Make sense? Okay. Once the offenders are in the program, they're not allowed to leave their home without our permission. And then they're only allowed to go to the places that we say they can go, and they're only allowed to be there for as long as we say they can be there. Now, the kinds of things that we allow them to leave for, we'll allow them to leave to go grocery shopping or go to a medical appointment, or if they have a job. And frankly, there's a number of our offenders have ultimately gotten jobs, and so we allow them to go to their jobs. And each week, we sit down with the offenders, our deputies who are assigned to monitor their cases, and they make up a schedule. And they say, okay, this is what your schedule is for this week. This is the place you can go. These are the things that you can do. And if you deviate from that schedule, we may bring you back into custody. And if you deviate significantly, we're going to arrest you and charge you with escape. If you cut the ankle bracelet off, we arrest you and charge you with escape. Okay? The deputies, in addition to meeting with the offenders and helping them with their schedule or working with them to determine what their schedule is, they're also out in the field, and they make home visits, unannounced, regular home visits. They both visit their home, and they also do spot checks. So if a person has a job, they'll show up at their job to see if they're there. If a person is supposed to go grocery shopping, they'll show up where they're supposed to go grocery shopping and make sure they're there. So we will monitor them and keep an eye on them in the community and check them throughout there. Now, the purpose of the visits are twofold. One is to work with the offender and try to identify what's going on in their lives, and if there's some way that we can help rehabilitate them, then we'll work with them. But it's also to check on them, make sure that they're living up to the terms and conditions of the program. And so we may conduct searches of their homes, looking for things that they shouldn't have. And if we find something, we can bring them back into custody. Now, one of the things I told you, remember, we got substantially less money to deal with this population than the state was using. And I had to find a cost-effective way to do this. And one of the things is, we in essence are turning their homes into a jail, right? Now, in order for me to keep a person in the Butte County Jail, it costs about $90 a day. It's pretty cheap, actually. It costs the state well over $100 to keep them. In some counties, it costs well over $100. So even in Butte County, you're getting a pretty good rate. But to put them on home arrest or turn their home into a jail, it costs us about $20 a day. Fairly cost-effective way to do that. And there's a couple of things for me. We've got no medical costs, we've got no food costs, and we reduce the county's liability. If an inmate's in jail and they slip and fall in their shower, guess who's going to get sued? We are. Yeah. If they slip and fall in their own shower, we have less likelihood that we're going to get sued. One of the hallmarks of our program is our day reporting center. And at our day reporting center, this actually was set up in the old juvenile hall. It had been abandoned. It was being used for storage. For the cost of about $200,000, $250,000, plus a lot of inmate labor, we went in and cleaned up and renovated the old juvenile hall. And if any of you are involved in construction projects, especially when you have government involved in construction projects, $200,000 is not a lot of money. I'll tell you that right now, okay? It seems like a lot of money to me, but you can, okay. At any rate, we developed our day reporting center, and this is the place where we require these offenders to come to receive classes and programming that we've determined they need. Go ahead.
That's where I saw a lot of people hanging around outside the other day when I went by your office. I was coming back out.
This is right across from the probation?
Yeah, there's a lot of people standing out.
Could have been. Yeah.
Outside hanging around.
Yeah, it could have been. Maybe, what time did you come through?
About 10 o'clock.
Yeah, they probably run a break, so they have the ability to go outside on their breaks and come back in. But these offenders are required to come, and what we do with them once they're in the program is we do what's called a needs assessment. The needs assessment is to determine what their criminogenic needs are. Essentially what that is what is it about these individuals that cause them to commit crime? So for example, if you've got somebody who's addicted to drugs, they're liable to go out and steal to support their drug habit, right? So if we deal with the drug addiction, perhaps we can keep them from breaking into your house, right? Make sense? Okay. If you've got, somebody who didn't finish high school, has no education, has no job skills, can't get a job, they're going to break into your house and steal from you, right? Because they need to support themselves. If we can provide them with an education, some job skills, and get them a job, get them off drugs, help them deal with those kinds of issues, we should be able to help keep them from doing what they're doing. And all of the programs that we have been studied. They're called evidence-based programs. And once we determine what their needs are, then they're required to come to the Day Reporting Center and required to go through various programs. And I'll show you those here in a moment. Inside the DRC, Day Reporting Center, we have a computer lab. This is where we run our GED program. So we have interns from California State University, Chico, who will come in and help, along with employees of the company that we contracted with to help us provide the program. Will come and help people prepare for their GED. We also have the ability for them to do job skills training on the computer, write resumes, look for jobs, those kinds of things. And interestingly enough, all of these computers were actually provided to us by the Department of Employment and Social Services, so that didn't come out of the money that we ultimately had to deal with this population. And all of these benches that they're on were refurbished. We actually, all of the furniture and all the benches we got from surplus, and we refurbished at no cost to the program. All using inmate labor. Okay. All right. This was the company that we ultimately contracted with to help provide the programming. And the offenders are required to take these classes designed to reduce recidivism. As I told you, they're all evidence-based. And this company, Sentinel, they have a great deal of experience for providing these kinds of programs. They provide programs like this all throughout the United States. And they've become great partners with us. They also provide us with the GPS ankle bracelets. They're the company that owns the bracelet. And so we rent the bracelet. That's a better option for us. We rent these for probably about $6 a day. It's a better option for us because if the inmate cuts it or breaks it, it doesn't belong to us. We don't have to buy a replacement. And as technology improves, they bear the cost of the technology, and we don't have to invest in it. So it's a good way that we're doing that. So let me tell you a little bit about the classes that we offer at the Day Reporting Center. And the first one is called Moral Recognition Therapy. That's not misspelled. That's actually the way it is. And every offender has to go through this program. It's kind of the core. And essentially this is a cognitive behavioral change program. It's in essence designed to teach them how to make good decisions. Because frankly, most of them don't know how to make good decisions because they've got themselves into this problem. So this program helps deal with that.
You teach it to Obama?
He's not in the program, so not yet. Not yet, exactly. So the other thing that we have a couple of drug and alcohol treatment programs. One of them is a program called Staying Quit, and I'll just pass these as you go, and you can look at them. We also offer AA and NA in the Airport Center, and we recently started a program called Craving Addiction Management, and that's a program that is a very intensive program. And if we find that the offenders are not progressing on the Stay and Quit program, we'll put them in the more intensive programs.
Is there programs for the spouses of as such?
In terms of the like Al-Anon, and,
I believe that's what it's called.
yeah, actually we don't have that. Although we're adding new programs every day. And as a matter of fact, I was in talks today with Catalyst here in Buchanan. And we're...
Is that a rape prevention?
No, that's domestic violence prevention.
Oh, domestic, right.
So here's kind of an interesting thing. when we brought in that craving addiction management program, the gentleman that does that is a guy named Dr. Stolka. And he showed us a study that said that many females who are drug addicts are led into that life because they've suffered traumatic injuries or trauma as a result of either child abuse or domestic violence. And if you can deal with the underlying trauma, then you can have good success at dealing with the drug addiction. And if we deal with drug addiction, then we've got the rest of it licked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we're working on bringing them, Catalyst, in to our program to work with female offenders who've been victims of domestic violence, right?
Yeah.
To help deal with that so that we can be effective in dealing with the drug issues and going forward from there. Okay? We have something, we have a program called Something for Nothing. This is for your thieves. This is for people who steal. We have a parenting and family values course. We offer that. I'll just kind of pass it around. And then we have another program called Thinking for Good. It's confronting antisocial and criminal thinking. So it's a companion to that moral recognition therapy course. We also have, let's see, we have anger management, we have parenting courses. I told you about our GED preparation. We have a literacy program. This is one I'm just really proud of. We partnered with the Butte County Library, and friends of the library come into our program and help with literacy. So when our staff identifies an offender who can't read or write, they'll pair them up with a member of the library. Are you familiar with the program? Yeah, you look familiar. Are you in the program? Or? Yeah.
I just got appointed to the library board.
Advisory board.
Oh, well, congratulations and thank you.
I'm just learning about this.
I'm telling you, it's a fabulous program. And we currently have quite a number of offenders paired up with Friends of the Library, members of the Friends of the Library, who are teaching them to read and write. Once we teach them to read and write, then we'll get their GED. And then after the GED, we have college, we have courses that teach them to be successful in college, and courses that teach them to be successful in terms of the work environment. The job skills training. Let's see here. These classes that I'm showing you are taught in these small group sessions. They're run by trained individuals from the Sentinel program. And I'll tell you a little story about them in a minute because I'm pretty proud of that group as well. Now I want to tell you about my partners in crime reduction. Actually, this was a phrase coined by an individual that we're working with, a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Cottle. Dr. Cottle is a professor at the California State University of Chico. He is a criminologist, and he teaches their criminal justice program. And he came in, it was just kind of, when AB 109 was coming and we were putting all this together, I was contacted one day and said, hey, by a person who said, hey, this professor at the university wants to help. He wants to study your program and provide you with some ideas about how to go. Now, you got to be careful with professors. And I respect. I absolutely respect knowledge. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes they have views that are maybe a little out of alignment with what our views are. And so I wanted to meet him first, and I met him, and we hit it off actually right away. But he's got some characteristics in common with you actually.
So he's an outstanding individual.
He is actually. He's a Marine.
Oh, like him already?
Yeah. He's from Texas. And he actually worked in the trenches. He was a juvenile probation officer and a correctional officer.
Oh, wow.
So he's actually worked in the field. He understands that he's not just some guy that has never done anything. And it's funny, a lot of the things that we talk about, we spend a lot of time talking about how things are done in Texas and the Texas Department of Corrections and so forth. And he has a lot of ideas about that. As a matter of fact, one of the last ideas I'll tell you at the end, one of the things that we're looking at doing, I think you'll find he just got back from Texas, Houston, and was talking about a program there that we're going to try to bring here. So let me tell you about my partners in crime reduction. First off, I have the Butte County Department of Employment and Social Services. They supply our computers. for the DRC, which is what we use our GED grip. I told you about the Butte County Library, provides literacy program. All volunteers, doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. Nice, huh? Next, we have Butte County Child Support Services. This is kind of a good program. We partnered with the director of Butte County Child Support Services because she came to us and she said, listen, a lot of the people in your program owe child support. And she said, if you'll let me come in and work with them, I'll find a way to modify their orders down to a level that they can actually pay. And she said, there's a study that shows that if you can get a non-custodial parent to pay for 1 month, for 1 year, solid, every month for 1 year, you can raise the child support in the subsequent years and they'll continue to pay. And not only that, it improves the relationship between the parent and the child, which has a positive impact on the child going forward. So what they do is we identify we tell them who the offenders in our program are. They look and see if they've got child support orders, and then they'll work with them to get the orders lowered to a point that they can pay for them. There are 2 things that we require the offenders to work on in terms of paying. One is child support. If you have a child, you need to be supporting the child. Now, even if that means that all you can afford is $50 a month, well, that's $50 a month that you weren't paying before. The other thing that we require them to pay is victim restitution. Those are the 2 things that we think that need to be done. Take care of your children, make your victims whole. Okay? We have a partnership with the Butte County Mass Strike Force, and through that partnership we have a mentoring program. Volunteers from the community come in and are paired up with our offenders and they mentor them. You can understand that a lot of these people have never been around people who don't do the kinds of things that they were doing, right? They were always around other people who used drugs. They were always around other people who stole things. And so you actually, this has been a great program because it teaches them to be around people who work for a living and who are productive members of society and who are successful in life. And we teach them what that looks like so that hopefully they'll model that behavior. Okay? Let's see. We have a partnership with the Alliance for Workforce Development, provides job skills training to the offenders. Here's another program I'm really proud of. Our partnership with the Butte County Fire Safe Council. We have 3 offender work crews. 2 of them, they go out and do public works projects, pick up trash, and we have 1 that works with the Butte County Fire Safe Council. These offenders will go to the homes of elderly and disabled people who can't create defensible space around their homes, and they'll clear the brush free of charge. Huh?
Yeah.
There was an article on it.
That's right, you saw an article in the paper. As a matter of fact, I have flyers here,
Yeah.
and you're welcome to pass those around. This is a great program. It doesn't cost the recipients of the service any money. The offenders aren't paid for this. This is part of ultimately what they're doing. It costs the sheriff's office actually about plus it costs the cost of the deputy to send them out there, plus about $12 an hour in terms of the equipment and the gas and things like that. But frankly, we thought that it was such a positive program and had such a good benefit towards public safety, not only in terms of rehabilitating offenders, but helping keep our foothill communities safe from fire, that it was worth doing. It's been a great program. Here's actually some of our offenders who work. You can actually see them out. These are folks who are out clearing brush. This is one of the groups that was clearing stuff for the Fire Safety Council. Here they are working in the day reporting center, cleaning, painting, all those kinds of things. This is a good program. I actually would like to have more of these. I'd like to have more work crews. Nothing makes me happier than to see inmates out working, cleaning things up, right? It's a good program, right? All right. Here is another kind of interesting thing. These are offenders who've actually completed the program. They've graduated, they've gone through all the programs. All 3 of them had jobs, and they were by the time they were there. But what's significant about this is that all of them asked these correctional deputies to be in the picture with them. And many of them told us this was the first time they ever had a positive relationship with a law enforcement officer. It was the first time they actually felt a mutual respect and understanding. And so they talked about how this really changed their lives. I had the opportunity to go to a Christmas dinner for the mentoring committee and heard about offenders talking about how they failed probation, that didn't work for them. They failed out of drug court, that didn't work for them. But our program had worked for them because it was so intensive and kind of this wraparound service. So I was quite pleased to hear those good comments. Now, a couple of things I want to tell you about. As I told you, we have a partnership with California State University Chico, and they've been studying our program from the very beginning. And they actually bring interns in who are working on their master's theses and work and study the program. There's 3 or 4 different studies that are going on, but one of the things that they're studying is our recidivism rate. And at 6 months, they released the first study, which said, hey, you guys are on the right track, made some recommendations, which we ultimately implemented. And here recently, within the last couple of weeks, they released their updated study. It's a 1 year worth of data. And it looked at 461 offenders. And of the 461 offenders, 37% have successfully completed the program that they've gone. 22% are still going through the program. 4% were arrested for a new crime, and 6% were arrested for escape. No, I'm sorry, what? I apologize. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Good. So, we view recidivism differently than the state did. The state viewed recidivism as a new conviction. We view it as a new arrest. If we arrest you for the commission of a new crime, or you cut your ankle bracelet and run, then we consider that that's what our recidivism is. And as you can see, we're doing fairly well, comparatively, right? The other thing that I'm quite excited about is this 22% right here, which is the violations for terms and conditions, meaning some technical violation. They showed up late to a class, they didn't get home on time, they had alcohol in their refrigerator or something like that. What excites me about this, or what interests me about this, is that through this study, they've identified for us what these offenders look like. So we can actually have a profile of what that offender looks like. And the benefit for me is now I can start focusing resources on that population. So I don't have to spend resources on somebody who is likely to succeed. I can spend resources on people who are more likely to fail. It's a better, more cost-effective way to run the party. Okay? I told you about the partnership university. I told you about some of the things. One of the things that we're talking about doing now, you talk about these programs, and he just came back from Texas. So one of the programs we want to get off the ground is we want to take and partner with SPCA and rescue animal dogs from the shelter. And then we want to bring them into our alternative custody program and train our offenders to train the dogs to be companion dogs for veterans with PTSD. Okay? And so we want to partner with SPCA and the local Veterans Affairs, and have the offenders train the dog so it teaches them responsibility, it saves the dog, and it gives the veterans a companion. Huh?
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, exactly. It's all three.
For parolees, is that what that one?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I want to bring in. We want to bring in the veteran component as well.
That's great.
We've actually looking at a number of studies that have shown that there is a rehabilitative effect on inmates who learn how to care for animals and learn how to train animals. Certainly, as a veteran, you know that dog companion programs are very, very good programs. They help a lot of people. So that's something that we're ultimately working on getting done.
Is this for people that are on probation, not in the jail?
Well, actually, It's for the people who, we want to start with the people who are on our alternative custody program. So there's a place at the sheriff's office where we could kennel the dogs. We have to work out the logistics of that and everything. And these people would come and work with them and train them. But eventually, I'd like to move it into the jail. As a matter of fact, all the programs that you've seen here, I want to move into the jail. Because even if someone, if they pose too great a risk to put out a program, I still want them to get the benefit of the programs that we have. Because eventually they're going to get out, right? And I'd like to address the problem. So, that's kind of the quick and dirty overview. I probably took longer than I was supposed to.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So, question?
How long will it be before you get your expanded jail?
That is a great question,
Yeah.
for which I do not have an answer. So, we're in the process of applying for funding.
Yeah.
And we, because we're considered a medium-sized county, we are eligible to receive up to $40 million, but there's a 10% match of $4 million.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. That's going to be hard. That's going to be the hard part, okay? Now we're looking at, actually, there's a couple of jail impact fee accounts, and there's one right now with about $1 million in it right now that hasn't been used. We're looking at that. We're looking at a few other issues. But I don't see the county having the ability to come up with $40 million. So we're ultimately going to have to seek some kind of funding outside.
Is there a
Now,
bill, is there anything working through the Senate now and the state? Is there anything working through, like in the House or in the Assembly or the Senate in the state now to grant you funds?
The SB 1022 has already been passed, and we're working on applying for that.
Oh.
Now, I don't know what the future holds on that. I honestly don't. But that's one of those things where if that, I'm going to try it, and if that doesn't work, then we're going to find something, we're going to try something else. I mean, this is one of those things where you just can't lay down and die. You just have to keep
But
going.
that's the place where you could use people writing and calling.
It is the
and stuff
place
on
where I
your
can
behalf.
use support from the community. Yes. Thank you. Okay, question here, and I'll come there.
You were going to tell us about Sentinel.
Oh, so Sentinel, oh great, thank you. So I told you that Sentinel is the private company that we contract with to run the program. When they first hired on, they brought people from outside the area to run the programs. But I told you we partnered with the university, and as those students graduated from the program, they ultimately got hired by Sentinel, and now they're the ones working our program. So you had local college students who studied our program are now working for the company. It was wonderful because now they understand our program inside and out, and we provided job opportunities for local graduates. Pretty cool.
Yeah, where are they located, Sentinel? Where is this?
Their corporate headquarters, I know they have a West Coast office down in Ventura, and the corporate, I think, is in Louisiana, but I could be wrong.
Because I used to teach GED in Colorado Springs for the GED classes, and then I went to juvenile hall here, Butte County Juvenile Hall,
Okay.
the new one, and did church services on Sunday before the Boys and Girls Club came in. So I was one of the chaplains there.
Right.
So I'm
Okay.
familiar with going in and.
Yeah, so you understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good program, and I mean, ultimately,
I was just
really
curious about it.
encouraged by the fact that these kids kind of grew up in our program and now they've got jobs.
Yeah, that's great.
You had a question? I'll get to you, sir.
All of this that you devised to deal with 109 seem like just wonderful things to be doing to not only deal with your overcrowding, but to rehabilitate people. And I'm wondering why this is something hasn't been going on for years and years and years. Is it because of funding? Are you getting funding to do this, or is it just because you have to do it and find the funding? Or
We have to do it. We have no choice. And maybe that's the reason that we weren't doing it before. Although there were people doing it and there were entities that were doing it, so you're right. But for us it was new, and for sheriff's offices it was new. Sheriff's offices typically, the stay in county jail was typically very short, so you didn't have really a lot of time to program people. If they were sentenced to a misdemeanor, they'd spend no more than a year there. And if they were arrested for a felony and they were convicted, they'd be sent off to state prison. And so now, in some of our sentences, we'll have people for 3 to 5 years. So we actually have time now to program. And it's a necessity. We had to. One yes, sir.
Yeah, this is a wonderful program. It's almost like sending all the prisoners back to school again. But what is the rate of recidivism? And what do you think of Joe Arpaio?
So first off, so the current rate right now, what we're looking at right now is about 14%, which is pretty good
That's good.
compared to what this population was. Now, mind you, when parole was supervised in this population, they had to take everybody because they all got let out and they had to take everybody. I get to be a little more selective. I don't let everybody out. I let the ones out that I think are going to be most likely to succeed. Now, what do I think about Joe Arpaio? I think Joe is very creative. I think, as a matter of fact, you know Joe's on Twitter? Did you know that? I follow Joe on Twitter.
I think he's a wonderful sheriff. Put those suckers back out in their chain gang and make them work their way.
You see that we're trying to do some similar stuff there. And the one difference is Joe lives in Arizona and we live in California. California is a little bit different. And we actually looked at the tents, the tent idea. The fact is the tent idea was cost prohibitive because although you can build a tent, you still have to feed them and clothe them and provide medical care and have somebody to supervise them.
Yeah.
And so ultimately this became a more cost-effective solution for us. But eventually we're going to need to expand our capacity. The other side of Joe, sometimes Joe, I think he attracts a lot of litigation. And that costs the county a lot of money. And so we're a little more conservative because, frankly, Butte County doesn't have the financial resources that Maricopa County has, right?
Yes.
Exactly. All right. Yes,
Yeah, but you mentioned earlier having these inmates out in yours less liability in the jail.
yeah.
What kind of liability is that if one of these guys out on a bracelet just decides he doesn't care and goes out and causes bodily harm, or
Well,
what kind of liability is that to the sheriff's office and Butte County?
it's a good question. First off, let me tell you this. Like I said, relatively few of them have gone out and committed new crimes. None of the crimes have been violent. And I think we're at, you saw 461 went through the program. I believe that we're at 22. 22 of them have cut their ankle bracelets and run. All were back in custody within 24 hours, with the exception of one, and that took us about a week and a half to get him. Okay, so we go out, we get after him. And so the issue is what kind of liability? Well, I suspect that question would be the same as what kind of liability would the state have if a parolee did something, or probation if a probationer did something. And the fact of the matter is, there isn't a general duty of care owed to the public, believe it or not.
True. No,
Right?
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, right, okay, right. And so if an offender went and did something and we could show that we were doing our best effort and that we didn't in some way put the victim in danger beyond what the program is, I think that we would probably be successful. Now mind you, I don't ever want to be in that position because what's important to me is that I don't create no victims. I don't want anybody being victimized by this population.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, the crime has increased in Chico, there's no doubt about that. I mean, all you have to do is pick up the paper, and Chico's only a part of Butte County, I understand. Many of us have just thought, oh, this is AB 109, this is why we have so much more crime in Chico. Is it? Or you're talking like really they're not getting out and causing any crime, but yet the crime in Chico's like...
It's a difficult question to answer. And so there's a lot of factors and a lot of nuances to that. And so I'll tell you my thoughts if you'll allow that, hey, I could be wrong.
Okay.
Fair enough? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So first off, there is a general perception that crime is increasing, but that is based on anecdotal evidence, meaning things that you read in the paper or stories you hear. And one of the things that we've had the university do is they're doing a study to look at really what the crime was. And what they've found is that since the passage of AB 109, there has not been a significant increase in crime
In Butte County?
in Butte County.
Butte County.
In Butte County.
I wonder about Chico.
No, that included Chico.
It
Yeah.
includes Chico.
Now, there's more calls for service, I think, in Chico, and I think that you may hear about that kind of thing. The other thing is, now this population, the population that we're in charge of, we're keeping tight controls on.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, the jail is quite crowded, and so whereas before I may have had room to keep a chronic inebriant in jail, I mean someone who's constantly going out and getting drunk in public, and I could keep them in jail and dry them out. Now I can't do that because I don't have room for that. So that person gets released out on the streets, and they may be committing offenses or adding to that general perception that there's more crime. I don't believe that you can discount that effect of it, but the population that we're supervising, I don't think is attributing to that to the degree that maybe people think. The other thing is, I think that when it gets down to various approaches and in terms of how we allocate resources, I think Butte County allocates resources differently than other counties do. And so you may hear about things that are going on, in the news and kind of contributes to this general perception that things are worse now than they were before. But I think here at Butte County, we allocate our resources a little differently. And I think that helps further reach for public safety. But the fact of the matter is, these are tough times. These are challenging times. This is hard work that we're doing. And every day is a new challenge. Fair enough?
Yeah, and also I think the police officer numbers are down in Chico. So if something happens in Chico, they call Chico PD, not you guys. And they can't always respond to it right away.
Yeah, I certainly am not an expert on Chico PD's deployment strategy. I know more about ours.
Yeah, okay.
I was wondering if you're arresting illegal aliens, what do you do with them?
Well, we don't go out and arrest people for being illegal aliens solely because
No, I meant if they commit a crime.
Yeah, if a person commits a crime and they're here illegally, once they're fingerprinted, that information is transmitted to the Department of Justice and then transported to then transferred to INS, and a hold is placed on them. And once the case for which they're arrested for here has been adjudicated, then INS comes and picks them up, and then they go through their process to deport them.
But you actually make them serve their time first? Is that what you mean by adjudicating?
Yes.
What if they're a non?
If they're a non and they're sentenced to our program, we'll make them serve their time in county jail. We won't put them out onto one of these programs because they have a hold. Yeah. But
Are you having good luck with working with the Justice Department at this time?
the federal or the
Federal, federal. Or do you work with the state? I'm sorry.
We work with both. We work
Okay,
with
but
both.
I know there's been a lot of corruption within the federal Justice Department, and it's been really not only in the news, but you can
Sure.
look it up online. and
Yeah,
other places.
no, I follow all of that. So we deal mostly with our local FBI agents,
Okay.
local DEA, and if we deal with the U.S. Attorney's Office, it's the U.S. Attorney out of Sacramento.
Right.
So we don't have really any connection to what's going on in Washington, D.C. and those kinds. And the fact of the matter is, our local FBI, local DEA agents, the guys that work here, we have great working relationships with them. They do good work for us. And we've had good working relationships with the U.S. Attorney out of Sacramento. And where we work with them frequently is in the area of drug prosecutions. And so you'll find California is a difficult place to work when you're dealing with marijuana-related issues. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
There are,
It's a place to live when you deal with it.
Yeah.
I get it, I get it. And there are lots and lots of, and I'll be candid with you, I mean, when Prop 215 was passed, it was sold on the notion that you'd have these bedridden people suffering from cancer, right?
Right.
That was the image that that everybody was looking at, right? And frankly, if a person who is in pain and suffering, if that's the only place that they can seek comfort in their last days, I have no problem with it. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have a problem with it. But what has happened in California is you have lots and lots of people who are hiding behind Prop 215, and what they're doing is they are growing massive quantities of marijuana and they're selling it for profit. And unfortunately, the way the laws are structured in California, it makes it hard sometimes for us to prosecute those people. So we partner with our federal counterparts, and they have a much better ability to do that. How was that? Was off the topic of AB 109. Yes.
I'm a little bit off the topic too. I've heard of this, I don't know if it's national or just western states, of the sheriffs getting together in some kind of a coordination thing to protect us against probably encroachment of the federal, you know what I'm talking about?
I do. I know that there's some sheriffs, I believe, in Colorado. Thank you.
They
Yep.
band together and decided to sue the state.
That's correct. Yeah, they're suing the state
I
about
was
that.
going to ask you about the same thing.
Good, good, good. Yes, exactly right. And there are a group of North State sheriffs
Yes.
who have come together and made a stand. Sheriff Smith being one of them, and I certainly support him and agree with his position on the Second Amendment. And a lot of this has also, in addition to the Second Amendment, I know some of the North State sheriffs are kind of concerned about other issues that are federal related.
Climate River.
Yeah, exactly, and the Forest Service shutting down roads and things like that. And so that's an issue that Sheriff Smith takes is watching and taking a close look at, and has gives us some pause. So in some respects, we work very closely with our federal counterparts. And in other areas, we may disagree.
Oh, I just, on the marijuana follow-up, I was wondering if what the Board of Supervisors in Butte County had to, that's really hurting you more, what they've decided on this marijuana thing? Or?
No, I can't lay that at their footsteps. I mean, that was the laws were convoluted and difficult to enforce well before the Butte County Board of Supervisors ever weighed in on that whole thing. And you know, I understand the politics of that. I understand the difference of opinion on that whole issue. I understand why certain members voted for that, certain members voted against it. I get it.
Member voted against it.
I get it. I understand.
He's not here tonight.
Yeah. And where I'm at is, you know, that was a zoning ordinance to regulate the use of land. We concern ourselves more with criminals who are profiteering and selling, you know, marijuana and hiding behind Prop 250. Okay?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
No, it just seemed to me when she was talking about increasing crime in Chico, it seems like they're all knifings. And that's what got me thinking it had something to do with 109, because when you're a felon, you can't carry a gun, so everybody all of a sudden carries a knife. They're all stabbing each other.
No, I think if you're willing to stab somebody, you probably don't care about whether or not you can carry a gun. Right? Actually, you know what I think? My own personal view of that is I think that has a lot of those stabbings were gang related.
Yeah, that's what, that's our big,
Yeah.
that's our big problem.
Yes, sir.
As a Butte County Sheriff, are you guys understaffed and you you hear about every law enforcement, police, you know, I mean, the money's short, everybody knows that. You know, is our county sheriff department understaffed?
So I'm gonna answer that like
The job's not easy anymore.
our job isn't easy. I could definitely use more deputies, no doubt about that. There are parts of the county that we would like to cover with more staff. But I also understand the county's finances, and there's this balancing act that goes on, and we kind of get back to the same philosophy here, is that our job is to solve problems, not complain about them. And so we're doing the best with what we got. If piles and piles of money fell from the sky, then I would go to the board and ask for more deputies. Fair enough?
Thank you.
Fair enough. I want to say I'm very impressed with your partnering, things that you're doing with your inmates who are coming out and wherever they are.
Thank you.
stationed.
Absolutely.
And you work very, very hard to do that. I like every one of them. I think every one of them is a very valuable tool to create better citizens. And I know it took a lot of thinking outside the box
It did.
to do that. Very creative.
And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I got to also tell you, you know, there were times when we were going to go, hey, this is way outside the box, especially for Butte County, and this is not something we've tried before. And are we going to have the support of the community? And that's why I like to get out here and talk with everybody, because you need to know what we're doing. And then that way you can support us when we need it. And if we're doing something wrong, then we can hear about it and change it. But also, you know, you get back to, you see how hard we're working here. But if one of these guys goes and does something stupid, right? You now know all of the good work that we're doing, and you won't judge us by that one incident, right? You'll judge us by our greater body of work, and that's what I'm hoping with this is.
And we can spread the word. I mean, just the two of them here,
You got
spread
it.
the word.
Spread the word. Okay. Thank you. Off the hot seat now.
Do we want to mention